We're taking a break this week from our sermon series on the life of Peter. And today's sermon is going to be kind of unique to a lot of my preaching. The sermon is going to be very topical, very practical. And rather than preaching on a chapter of the Bible or a long Bible story or even a paragraph, it's really a sermon that focuses on just one verse, the verse that was read for our scripture reading. Let us therefore make every effort to do what leads to peace and mutual edification. What I want us to wrestle with today is the notion that our actions can have a negative impact on others. Our actions may not lead to peace. Our actions may not lead to mutual edification, and that's why we have to examine our actions to see if our actions are actually helpful or if our actions are hurtful. I did a little internet search in preparation for this lesson, and I was amazed how many resources there are out there for etiquette. In the olden days, it was Emily Post, who was the etiquette guru. She wrote her classic book in 1922 called Etiquette in Society. More recently, it's Judith Martin. She's become the Miss Manners of etiquette. She wrote her first book in 1982. That book's been revised and reprinted as Miss Manners' Guide to Excruciatingly Correct Behavior. And I think she's written several books now that have to do with excruciatingly good behavior in different areas. This book, though, that I mentioned, that's up here on the screen, 864 pages long. There's a lot about excruciatingly correct behavior. But you don't have to buy any books on the subject. You can just do a little web search. There's lots of websites out there. And it's interesting the different kinds of topics covered in these different etiquette websites. Business etiquette, you would expect that. There's lots that goes into that, right? Table manners, we know about that. Which fork to eat with first and things like that, right? Net etiquette, web etiquette, email etiquette, chat room etiquette. How about beach etiquette? Yep, there's one for that too. What you should do at the beach and what you shouldn't do at the beach. Flag etiquette, now that one's a serious one, what we do with our flag and how we treat it, certainly. Tea time etiquette, especially for those English kind of people who want the proper tea time. Ballroom dance etiquette, dating etiquette. I thought this one was interesting. Boat ramp etiquette. Now, this is serious business for those boaters and fishermen. You need not be in the way, and there's a right way to get your boat in and out of there so as not to mess up the whole process. What else is there? Cell phone, camera phone etiquette. We need a little bit of that. Bridal etiquette, funeral etiquette, gym etiquette, what to do or not do at the gym, golf etiquette, men's room etiquette, even pizza delivery etiquette. How about that? One of the interesting things was I didn't find any internet search that had to do with worship etiquette. Worship assembly etiquette. And I think we need a little bit of that. I thought about titling this sermon, The 10 Commandments for Church Assemblies. But I thought that was a little presumptuous. Didn't want any lightning strikes or anything like that, so I just decided to go with this title, Etiquette for Edification. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Edification has to do with building up. Edifice, building, that's where we get that word, right? So edification is building up the body of Christ. And so we need to learn a little etiquette for that. I want to talk about some guidelines for our gatherings that will make our gatherings for worship, Bible class, whatever, more edifying, more upbuilding. Now please know these are not written in stone, like those 10 commandments are written in stone. These are suggestions. And in many ways, this is just common sense. But as all of us know, common sense is not so common, right? So we need to review these things. These are not designed to offend anyone. They're not designed to point at any specific individual. So if you see yourself here, I wasn't thinking of you when I wrote this, but hopefully we can all learn something that we can keep in mind. So I want to try to take a little bit of a humorous approach to this, even though it obviously has a very serious side to it. So are you ready for the Big Ten? Here we go. I'm going to run through them quickly. Anytime you got a 10-point sermon, you got to move pretty fast. But most sermons, you start with a little longer ones first, and you go quicker as you go. So anyhow, all right. First etiquette for edification is be here at church, not at the lake. I thought about that after I went with that picture, that might have been a little bit of a, double meaning there. Be here, you mean at the lake? No, I mean here at church. A husband and wife rose one Sunday morning. The wife got all dressed for church. She noticed her husband wasn't doing a thing to get ready. And so she said to him, "Why aren't you getting dressed for church?" He said, "I have 3 good reasons for not going. Number 1, the church is cold. Number 2, nobody likes me there. And number 3, I just don't want to go." She said, "Well, I have 3 good reasons why you should go. Number 1, the church isn't cold, it's warm. Number 2, there are a few people who like you there. And number 3, you're the preacher, so get up and get dressed." So sometimes it's even hard for preachers to get up and get to church. Ultimately, being present for congregational worship is not optional. Not if we really want to please God. Not if we really want to take care of our spiritual responsibility to the church family. Not if we really want to grow in the Spirit and pass on our faith to our children. Now, any of us can come up with all kinds of excuses for missing, but most of them are just excuses. They're really not good reasons. Consistent attendance has been a problem more recently for our congregation, and I'm not sure the real reason for it. But I know God's not pleased by it, and the congregation is harmed when the body doesn't come together. There are many good reasons why the Hebrew writer told us in Hebrews 10:25 to keep meeting together, right? There are many good reasons for that. I realize in many respects I'm preaching to the choir, so to speak, this morning, because you're here, and those who need to hear that they need to be here most are those who aren't here. And yet you may be here today, but you may be one of those ones that just so happens you're here today. And most of the time you're not here. But either way, we can do better. And we must do better. We owe it to God. We owe it to each other as a church. So etiquette number 1 for edification is be here. It's hard to edify if you're not with someone. Secondly, the second etiquette for edification is be here on time. So yeah, we need to be here, but we also need to get here in a timely fashion. And tardiness can be a challenge for our congregation. Many of us don't get here on time, and we wander in 5, 10, some 15 or 20 minutes late regularly. There are some people I can set the clock on. I know when it is in the service they're going to arrive because they do every Sunday. I heard the story of a factory manager who found that production was being hampered by the tardiness of his people returning from lunch hour. And so when the whistle blew after lunch, there were so many people that weren't at their machines that it slowed the production down. And so he posted a sign by the suggestion box offering a cash reward for the best answer to the question, what should we do to ensure that every person is inside the factory when the whistle blows after lunch? And he got lots of responses, and he chose one, and it actually worked. But the guy had a sense of humor, and one of the suggestions was one that he wasn't going to work, but it was this: to guarantee that every person is inside the factory when the whistle blows, let the last person blow the whistle. That solves the problem, right? And with that in mind, one solution to the problem of tardiness is to not start services till everybody gets here. That would work. Nobody would get here late in that sense. But you can see how that just wouldn't work, right? The beginning of the service would get later and later and later. Because, well, why come at 8:30 if we're not going to start till 9:45? And so then the ones who are here on time would get here at or 8:45, and then the ones who always got here late would get here even later than that. So anyhow, that's not a workable solution, obviously. Let me just say, if you are chronically late, then it's time to come up with a new plan. The old plan isn't working. If it was working, you wouldn't be late. So get up earlier, leave the house earlier, set your clothes out the night before, whatever you need to do. Don't do the same thing again, because you do the same thing, you get the same outcome. For something to change, there has to be a change. So why is it unedifying for people to come in late? Obviously, it looks bad to visitors, because visitors are usually here on time. Matter of fact, they usually get here early because they're nervous and they want to be sure they get to the right place at the right time. And that doesn't look good if they're here way before everybody else. Secondly, it's a distraction, obviously, to have people wandering in after things start, especially when we're standing and they can't really see where there's open seats and things like that. And number three, it makes the job of those who organize the service more difficult, because they're not sure, do I replace this person? They haven't shown up yet. I don't know. You know, they have the opening prayer and we're about to have it. It's, for a lot of reasons, it's unedifying for people to be late. Number three, etiquette for edification. Dress appropriately. Now, you didn't think my picture was funny, did you? Okay. All right, I get it. Okay. Honestly, I'm not sure what to say to clarify this point. Clothing and appearance are not everything. But clothing and appearance are something, right? Someone has said a mule dressed in a tuxedo is still a mule. And that's true. The most important dress is obviously the clothing of the heart. Clothing it with character and faith and love and enthusiasm. But having said that, it's also true that our appearance can have a negative effect on others, rightly or wrongly. To dress provocatively can be a distraction to both men and women. I know you're glad I'm not wearing a tank top this morning, right? All right. To dress sloppily can have a negative effect on members and visitors. And so the question always comes up, somebody says, does God care what I'm wearing? Does God care what I'm wearing? And my answer is, only as it reflects what is in my closet and what is in my heart. Weigh that in your mind. Think about that a little bit. In other words, God doesn't judge me for something I don't have. If I'm wearing the best I have, which isn't very nice, or if I'm wearing the most appropriate thing that I actually own, God's not going to judge me negatively for that. But if I'm choosing, I have lots of other things that are much more appropriate, but I'm choosing not to wear something appropriate, then God is looking at that and wondering. Of course, He knows what's going on in our hearts. So in my opinion, we can go to either extreme. We can dress in a way that's way too formal, or we can dress in a way that's way too informal. And there are dangers and hazards on both sides of that thing. Somehow we need to find that happy medium that reflects our love for God and doesn't draw attention to ourselves either positively or negatively. And let me add, when we know we're serving up front in the congregation, then we need to even give a little more consideration to what I'm wearing. All right, so what have we covered so far? Be here on time, dress appropriately. Number 4, the fourth etiquette for edification is give your best. Give your best. And all I want to say here is when we come for worship and fellowship, we need to honor God and do more than just go through the motions. Let's be sure to give our best effort as we sing and as we pray and as we interact with each other. We don't come just to sit back and to be entertained. Our worship is something that we should be engaged in, giving our best in our worship to God. And most of the time, what we get out of worship or what we get out of fellowship is in direct proportion to what we put into it, right? And God's not pleased with our leftovers. He's not pleased with our half-hearted efforts. And those won't bring satisfaction to us either. Such effort or lack of effort is discouraging to members and visitors alike. Now, I'm not suggesting that we fake anything. That is not the point. I'm suggesting we do our best to prepare ourselves in advance for worship and then to come ready to give our best. Number 5, fifth etiquette for edification is don't be a distraction. This point has many aspects to it, and my points could be easily misunderstood, so please listen carefully as we work through this one. While we're together, it's so important to realize how easily we can become a distraction to others, and we should try our best not to do that. One simple example has to do with our cell phones. When we come into the assembly, one of our first actions should be to either turn off that cell phone or to silence it, right? Few things in our modern experience are more frustrating than hearing a cell phone go off in a public setting when it shouldn't be going off, right? And then that fumbling to try to find that silly thing. Where is that phone? And it takes forever, it seems, right? Now, some phones have kind of a traditional ring to them. Other people choose very funny or entertaining rings. But anyhow, any kind of ring in the middle of a prayer or preaching or anything is a distraction. And obviously, we shouldn't answer it and talk to someone in the middle of the worship service, unless the call is from God. And then I give you permission to answer that call. As a matter of fact, we'll silence everybody and put it on speakerphone, and we'll all listen, all right? But in addition to that, there are other behaviors and activities that can be distracting. Talking to someone else during worship, movement around, stretching, coughing, and I know sometimes we have colds and we have to work at that thing to try to keep it as quiet. Crying is obviously one of those things. You know, when an adult just cries and cries and cries, I mean, it's just, no. So let me make a few brief suggestions. First of all, when we stand up after sitting for a long time, like for the invitation song, you've been sitting for 25 or 30 minutes, that's not the best time to stretch. And I've seen this before, you know. We're all a little stiff from sitting, so, yes. Feel much better now. Imagine the people behind you watching you do that. That is not edifying, right? All right, how about another one? Let's see. Let's try to stay where we are when we get there, right? Some people are like a yo-yo, right? In and out, back and forth. And if you know you're someone who has to move quite a bit or visit the restroom often, the best thing to do is try to sit toward the back. You know you're going to have to move, and why sit in the front row when you know this is your challenge? Third, let's talk about the crying child. That presents a challenge for everyone. The child, the parents, and everyone around them. We want to be a church that welcomes children and families and makes room for them. And children need to learn how to be quiet in church. So we need to support parents who are training their children. But when a child refuses to quiet down or is crying with no end in sight, then what do we need to do? We need to get them out of the auditorium as quickly as possible until they can settle down and we can return. Now, back when we were training our children, we brought lots of things to give their attention to. And obviously those things changed as they got older, but quiet toys, you know, don't bring a rattle that's got lots of noise-making qualities to it. That's not a good worship toy for the child, right? And then there's snacks. We always like snacks. Cheerios, one of the greatest inventions on the planet, right? Not crumbly or crummy or sticky, or not those honey nut ones, but the regular ones. Sometimes I see people, they leave and it's like, my goodness, what happened here? Oh, that was just the child's snack. Okay. Somebody bring in the cleaning business, right? We don't need that kind of mess. And yet we need something for the kids because they sometimes get hungry or need the distraction. While our kids were small, we made sure we sat toward the back, maybe the third row from the back. So when it was necessary, we took the kids out, and they knew it wasn't a reward to be taken out. So that's another part of the training. Number 6, etiquette for edification. Greet the visitors first. This seems too obvious to even be said, and yet it's not something that everybody thinks about. We may only have one chance with a visitor, and they may be moving quickly to the exit, and so we have to move quickly. And the encounter with them needs to be friendly, and it doesn't need to be long. And so before the service, let's try to greet our visitors. During the meet and greet time, we want to see each other, yes, but let's be sure we're also aware if there's visitors. And then right after the service, if there's a visitor that you haven't had a chance to meet yet, be sure to try to meet them. And if one of our members tries to stop you on the way, which that happens because we want to talk with each other too, say, hey, there's this visitor over there. Let's go meet them together, and then we can chat. The 7th etiquette for edification, greet all the members. So once we've made sure we've greeted the visitors, then we want to be sure to greet all the members. And what we want to avoid is this clickiness that can sometimes happen in any kind of group, right? Where someone talks only to the same people all the time, that same small circle of people. And obviously you get close to those people, and that's not a bad thing. But does it always have to happen right here at church? Can't you have that close relationship outside of here? And while you're here, pay attention to the family of God, right? Just like if you go to your family gatherings, do you only talk to one family member the whole time there? That would seem a bit odd, right? So I want to encourage us to greet all the members. And to notice especially those who struggle with social things, right? Who have a tendency to stay to themselves and have a hard time reaching out. We need to reach out to them. And so my hope is that everyone will be touched and engaged in the fellowship, visitor and member, and that the thing that should never occur is that someone come among us and that they're overlooked or ignored. No one should feel they're unimportant. And no one should feel that there's anybody that wouldn't give them the time of day if they asked for it, right? We don't want that. That might happen in the world, but that should never happen in the church. The 8th etiquette for edification, support those who go forward. Now, this is a simple, practical thing, and it's part of our experience as a church family, this idea of having an invitation time and having people go forward. Some people look at that invitation time as reserved for only the big stuff. Some big major crisis in life or some serious sin that needs to be confessed. Or maybe the time when they become a Christian. Other people look at it as for anything that needs to be shared. And I like to see it as a time of communication. And to some degree we need to find a balance because all of us could come forward every service with everything on our hearts and that would be a little cumbersome. But it's a time to communicate big stuff and small stuff. A thanksgiving, a joy, a need, a recommitment. But either way, we need to be careful to show the right kind of support to those who do come forward. Support them immediately after service. Go by and whatever the situation was, rejoice with them, grieve with them, pray with them, support them. And obviously, if it's a serious thing, be sure that carries over to the rest of the week. They didn't just need support at that moment. They may need ongoing support. You can do that by phone or card or whatever. What we don't want to see happen is someone come forward, share something significant, and we take it too lightly and don't follow through with it. The ninth etiquette for edification. See, we're nearing the end. Notice who's missing. This is an important one. And I like this picture here because of the two empty seats there. When we're together, we should look around. Yeah, it's all right to look around. Look around and notice, hey, so-and-so's usually sitting right there. They're usually at this service. Pay attention to these kind of things. Make the mental note, I need to follow up on them later on. There's a story told by the old Paul Harvey of the 73-year-old farmer who was pinned beneath his tractor for 4 days and nights. But he was found by his friends just in time. And you say, how was he found just in time? The fourth night was the night before church. And when he didn't show up at church that next day, people were concerned because he never missed. Never missed. And for him to miss, something must be serious. Isn't that great? If our regularity in our worship gathering is so regular that people notice that much and therefore are concerned. Now, that's harder for those who are here only once a month or twice a month. If they miss, well, that's kind of normal, right? But we want to be so regular that when we miss, it obviously is noticed. You know, imagine how hurtful, though, it would be if you were a very regular attender. I mean regular, like clockwork, and you missed, and maybe you missed a couple of weeks, and no one noticed, and no one reached out to you. We want to be sure that doesn't ever happen. Calling is a way we show that we care. But before we can call, we have to notice that they're missing. And then finally, the 10th etiquette for edification. Make up your contributions. Now, this almost seems unnecessary to include because our church is so regular and faithful in their giving, and yet it always helps to have a bit of review. I've always really appreciated those who are so attentive and conscientious in their giving that if they forgot to bring their contribution or they missed a week, the church would receive it in the mail that week. You know, that they just were so intent on the church having it at the right time that they would mail it. And that's great. That's certainly not what has to be done, but I've always been impressed by those who do that. For years, when we would go on vacation, we would either write the checks ahead of time and leave them with someone to give so that the cash flow of the church would remain the same, you know, that kind of a thing. Or we just make it up when we returned. Now that we're using the Tithely app, little plug for that, we never forget the checkbook because we're not even using it. And we can give all the time and never miss. Unfortunately, there are some people in some churches who are on what one person called, I thought this was funny, the stay home and get rich plan. The stay home and get rich plan. And what they meant by this was, if I'm not at worship, then the money I would have given to God is now mine to keep. Kind of like if you don't go to the movies and you don't drop that money on the movie and the popcorn, then hey, I got all this free money for myself that I would have spent on that. That's not really how God sees it, right? That's not the mindset He wants us to have. What God expects us to do is decide in our hearts what we're going to give to God for His kingdom purposes, and that is decided ahead of time. It's part of our planning. And when that decision has been made, that money, that portion is dedicated to God for His purposes and can't be used for anything else. And so I can't take my regular contribution money with me on vacation and spend it on my fun. That's money that's God's. Now, it's all God's, but we dedicate a portion of it to be given for God's purposes. Every week or month that I prosper, that I have income, I have responsibility to give a portion of that back to God to support His kingdom, and it also keeps me on track spiritually. And if I happen to be away, or I'm sick, or I'm not present, then I have a responsibility to make up the contribution I've missed because it's money that has been dedicated to God. And it can't be used for any other purpose. So, what do you think about our etiquette for edification. I hope you find them to be practical and something that will indeed make our congregation stronger and healthier and more edified. We need to look at our actions and say, are my actions building up the body, or are my own actions tearing the body down? So let us therefore make every effort. I love the way you put it. Every effort, underline that, to do what leads to peace and mutual edification. Let's review them just quickly. Be here on time, dress appropriately, give your best, don't be a distraction, greet the visitors first, then greet all the members, support those who go forward, notice who's missing, make up your contribution. Let me end with an illustration from nature. I like this. The redwood trees of California. Someday I'm going to get up there and see them. Some of you I know that lived out there or have been out there have seen these massive trees. They're among the largest and oldest living things on earth, and are some of the tallest trees in the world. Some of them are 300 feet tall. That's the length of a football field, right? 300 feet tall, and some of them are 2,500 years old. They've been on the earth longer than Christ has been gone from the earth. Wow, that's a long time. Now, you would think that trees that large would have root systems reaching hundreds of feet into the ground to support that kind of a massive tree, but they don't. Their root systems are very shallow. Some as shallow as 6 feet, and the deepest at 12 feet. 300 feet tall and only 12 feet in the ground? How do they remain so stable? Their intertwined roots with other redwood trees. They grow together in groups, and they support each other. How's that for an illustration for what the body of Christ is like? We need to have our roots intertwined with each other's roots. And the only way to do that is to be together, to grow strong together, to edify one another. So let's learn the etiquette needed for edification.